Hi, Jody Hardesty with Empowered Heart Connections. When your partner loses their job, whether by just getting laid off or for cause, it can be really a stressful time in a couple's relationship to navigate how to move forward in a positive way and to help your partner in a way that's productive and doesn't cause more stress. One of the things that most of us tend to do whenever our partners are struggling is we go to fix it. And that's usually not very helpful. Most people usually want to navigate the solutions themselves unless they ask for help. So, the first step is to make sure that you are validating as much as you can their feelings. And even if they go to the doom and gloom place, which many of us do if we are in a position where we feel powerless or we've lost a job, but it can be so validating for someone to not have to argue out of their emotional state. So even if they say, my life is over and this is devastating and there's nothing ever I'm going to be able to do to make the same amount of money or be in the same position, I'm never going to get a job again. That's really, really, really hard to hear as a partner to someone that, especially if you're not kind of one of those people that go to a doom and gloom place. So to make sure that you are allowing your partner to be where they're at emotionally, knowing and trusting that it's not always going to be in that state. So, for example, if they're kind of catastrophizing the experience, like, oh no, this is over, my life is over, everything's ruined and awful, to really make sure you go there with them that I get it, this is really, really hard and it feels really stressful and you feel totally powerless right now. And I can hear, how stressful this is. And is there anything I can do to help? This is always my go to. I've learned over the years after I tried to fix problems myself. And then my partner taught me, hey, it would be really helpful if you could just hear me out with my emotions and then, say, is there anything I can do to help? So from years of my own practice at trying to do this, I know it's really difficult to not go to that fix it place. Is that, okay, well, no, it's not the end of the world and everything's going to be fine. And, things will get through this. It's not a big deal. And let's work this out rather than really just sitting with someone in their rawness in those moments and knowing that this isn't necessarily true, but this is a true feeling for them. So to truly honor and allow them to be wherever they are in that moment. And that is really allowing someone to feel safe and heard and validated in the muck of the traumatic emotional experience of losing a job. So especially if they've been there for a long time, or if they've been in the same position for a long time, or if it's the same career they've had for a long time, it can be pretty traumatic because this is, for most of us, our jobs are a large part of our life and how we function and interact in the world and present ourselves in the world. So to first of all, again, acknowledge those feelings and recognize that this is a grieving process and we all experience grief differently. But there are typically those stages that people go through: the bargaining, the anger, the sadness, the depression, and eventually acceptance. But it's a process, and sometimes it goes through in an abnormal way. It doesn't necessarily start with one feeling and go to the solution. It can kind of cycle back through. So it can kind of go back to bargaining and then go back to anger. And then all of a sudden you're depressed again. And then you start to accept things. And then people start to retract a little bit and go backwards. So it can be a real long process of just trying to get to and stay in acceptance and work through where you go to the next step. So again, making sure first and foremost we validate those feelings, even if we disagree with them, even if they're completely wrong in your opinion, but that you go to that dark place with your partner. That's one way we honor our partners, is by being able and willing to go to that really ugly dark place that they go and be there with them in those moments, holding them, supporting them, and honoring their experience in those moments. Then, once they've gotten through that initial kind of shock and dismay stage, that again, they probably are going to cycle back through over these experiences. But once they've gotten a little bit out of that, like, okay, maybe it's not the end of the world, maybe there is an opportunity for me, maybe there's something different I can do, then you can, again, how can I help? Don't assume. And you can talk to them about how you can give them maybe some ideas or suggestions or how you can help if they're open to that. So this may be, hey, let's just work on your resume together, or maybe if you have some skills in computer and they don't, or if you're, great at writing, you can kind of summarize some things for them for their resume, or you can kind of proofread for their resume, or whatever they're wanting to do in order to move forward. You can kind of allow them to ask you for help in those moments for things that would be beneficial for them. So again, if you're kind of more savvy with applications and jobs or resumes, you can walk them through that. You can proofread for them. You can help them kind of figure out what the next steps are. If you're, maybe a little less in that fight or flight mode than they are at this time, that you can help walk them through those steps. Okay, maybe we can, first of all, again, ask, are you ready for some ideas or some suggestions? And kind of walk them through that process. Okay, so let's just explore what some possible job options will be. Let's look at our financial situation and what we need to do. Maybe we need to kind of rearrange our budget, or maybe we need to reallocate some of our spending that we're doing for now while we're in this transition period. But just kind of walking them through some of those steps, because when we've experienced a trauma or a huge stress like a job loss, it can feel totally overwhelming. And a lot of times our partners don't know where to begin. And they can really use us being the kind of rock for a little while. And again, I know this is difficult when many of us, our partners are our rock. So when we have to be the rock, it's like, ooh, that's a little challenging. But it is doable to remind yourself, and it's also beneficial for you to remind yourself that, hey, I'm strong, I'm capable, I can be a rock also. I can be the support system. I can be there for my partner so they're able to move through this in a positive way. So the going through kind of the plan of action, and then before you actually make the plan or follow through with the plan, this can be a really helpful time to validate your partner's qualities. Because when you get fired from a job, it can feel like you just don't have any. That especially if it is a career you've had for a long time, that it can feel pretty devastating and can really knock your self-esteem. So to recognize that in spite of the job, there are other things that you have qualities of, and that they're valuable, what they mean to you, all the many traits and characteristics that they have shared with you that you appreciate over the life of your relationship, and to really honor and allow them to be, of course, experiencing their emotional experience, but also acknowledging all the things and the traits that you love and appreciate about them, and that you connect with them. That this can be really obviously a self-esteem hit whenever we lose a job or we're transitioning to another job. Is okay, well, who am I? What do I do in life without my job? Especially whenever it's been a job that they've had for a really long time, is how do I reinvent myself? How do I see who I am outside of this job? And that's when, as a partner, you can really be a good support system for them, is to, again, kind of maintain that positivity and really encourage them to explore all the avenues that they could possibly go down, especially if they've got kind of a narrow focus because they've got maybe one direction they've been going for a long time, is that you can kind of pull out for them all of the many possibilities. And then you can kind of activate that plan, like, okay, so we've got basically our finances kind of settled, how we're going to arrange that for a while, and let's just start doing some exploration. Let's see if there's other opportunities out there that might even be better than what you were doing before, or maybe different, but can also be really valuable or rewarding for you. And again, if you're in the place where you can kind of maintain a little bit of time to help the other person really navigate this process more clearly, that's obviously ideal, but not always the case with most people. In the world we live in now, but usually most people have to have income in order to make that possible. And hopefully we have savings to help provide for that kind of transition period. But if not, it's still possible to kind of do some exploration, some quicker exploration, to find out what some other type of job opportunities can be for your partner. And again, really, really enhancing what their qualities are. Because it can be pretty devastating. It can feel kind of like I don't have any qualities anymore. My job doesn't want me, then I'm worthless. And again, there's much more to life than our jobs, even though many of us spend a lot of our lives working. So continuing to support and validate them, and then also to make sure you remember you as well. Because it's clearly going to be stressful for both people in this relationship, especially whenever we're both usually dependent on each other's income for financial stability. So it's going to be stressful for both people. And instead of during this time going to your partner with your concerns and fears, it might be more helpful to go to a friend or another support system, a therapist or a coach, to go get some really insight and tools to help you make sure that you are doing your own self-care so you're not completely depleted just trying to lift up your partner. Because it's one of those times in a relationship when you have to be the more strong person, and in a solid relationship we all take turns doing that. We all have our time period in the relationship where we're like, okay, now it's time for me to be the strong one. It's time for me to be able to really focus on supporting my partner and helping them rise out of this dark place, and allow them some more room and some more grace than maybe you would normally. Maybe you'd have more of a give and take normally in a relationship. But again, when one of you is experiencing a crisis or trauma, it's really important for you to be able to have that room for them so that they can really feel loved, honored, and supported and validated, and can help them move to a better place for both of you, right? Because you both want them to get to a better place so that you can move forward in a positive way. But again, don't forget you. Remember to self-care, take some time for yourself. And if you are finding it really difficult whenever they are going to that maybe catastrophizing place, or they're in a really dark place and you're finding it really hard to be the one that's the bigger person in that moment and just honor and validate them, and you just want to say, just stop it, we'll be fine, everything's okay. That's a good reminder that it's time to take a break. Always remember those breaks. And it doesn't matter if it's for a long time. Sometimes it's just, I need to go get a glass of water, or I need to run to the restroom. But remembering to be self-aware during this time so that you can help each other not be triggered by your own emotional reaction, which is easier said than done, I get. But to try to remember that this is for yourself as well as reminding your partner that this is a moment in time, and it's not everything. It's not all that we're experiencing. It's just a moment in time. And again, I know that's easier said than done. I have to remind myself of this one all the time, that these things will pass, we'll get to the other side, and we'll be okay, we'll get through it, right? But sometimes it's too soon to tell your partner that kind of stuff. Sometimes they just need to be in the muck with you for a little while until they're ready to go to that next step where, you know what, this is really hard, and I totally get you, and I feel how uncomfortable and scary and unpleasant this is, but we're gonna get through this, we'll be okay. Once you get to that point where you're able to move on to the next step, is I'm really going to honor that those are your feelings, and eventually we'll get to that place where it'll be okay, and we can get through this, and we can do hard things, and we can overcome difficulties, and even if it's super stressful, we'll get through it. We'll be able to get to the other side and have a positive outcome. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Please make sure you subscribe and like this video if this has been helpful. I so appreciate you watching. Thank you.